Okay, your turn. Give me a question.
Right, back at you now. Okay. So, what is one of those moments that has just stopped you in your tracks? And that's a pretty wide question, but in the last 3 years, a fostering moment that's absolutely just stopped you in your tracks. Take it anywhere you want with that.
Yeah, that's a really difficult one to pick one. My name is Elspeth, and this is Matt. We are a foster family. We have 4 kids currently, and this is a new sort of podcast thing where we're going to ask each other a question about fostering. Now that we've been fostering for 3 years, what would you tell your younger self, or when you first started fostering, and what one bit of advice would you tell yourself right at the beginning of fostering?
This question was really useful in advance. What would I tell myself? I'd tell myself it is not as frightening as you thought it was going to be. So that's not to say that it has been a bed of roses and it has been very easy, because it certainly hasn't, and we know that, and our kids know that, our family know that, and our neighbours can certainly hear that at times in the garden. But everything is manageable. Things can take longer. Things can require much more energy than you could ever have imagined. But with the support of friends, with the support of social workers, the support of church, all that side of things, it's not as scary. I mean, ultimately, what we're doing is we are using the skills that we have as parents. We've developed over years and years with our own kids. So our 2 birth daughters are the eldest in the family, aren't they? So we've spent a decade plus with them, and we're taking those skills and we're using it in a slightly different environment. Yes, we're traumatized kids, and yes, there were some real extremes of behaviour and reactions, but we know that. And so yeah, you're equipped. You don't have to be superhuman. You're equipped, and it's not as scary as it might first seem.
I'm going to remind you of that this evening. That's quite positive outlook.
I thought you were watch this evening.
I would say to my younger 3-year self, don't take new foster children in your placement to open spaces straight away, because I have
flight risk
fallen foul very much as I seeing a child run off into the distance and freaking out somewhat. So I think when you don't know what a child's going to do, I would go to somewhere safe, like soft play. Okay, your turn. Give me a question.
Right, back at you now. Okay. So, what is one of those moments that has just stopped you in your tracks? And that's a pretty wide question, but in the last 3 years, a fostering moment that's absolutely just stopped you in your tracks. Take it anywhere you want with that.
There was a moment where I was struggling to get a foster child to take medicine. You remember this one?
Yeah.
And I tried everything. I even phoned the birth family, social workers, looked up stuff, and I just cannot get them to take this medicine. And at this point, I think I was in the toilet crying because she wouldn't take her medicine.
And this wasn't just Calpol, this was serious antibiotics we needed to get into.
But we resolved it, we got through it, but that stopped me in my tracks a little bit, which is ironic given that I'm a, ex-doctor, currently not practicing. But yeah, you would think that anyone who could get someone to take medicine would be me, but yeah, I couldn't.
But we know why, don't we? Broadly, it's control, which is, I know you've discussed in other videos, and that is something that underpins so many of the responses and the behaviours that we see in the foster children. It's a desire for control. Yeah. And if a child can close their mouth, make sure that no medicine's going in, that's all about the control. But goodness me, it's frustrating, isn't it? Yeah. If I was answering that question, I would say there was a moment, and I know I told you about it, a few months ago, walking back from church in the morning, and I had a little chap on my shoulders, and he just tapped the top of my head and said, "I happy." And this was a little guy who'd only, didn't have massive speech at that stage, but just in that moment, in that time, after being with us for a good bit of time, just tapping my top of the head and saying, "I happy," was so out of the blue for me and so rewarding, and that'll always stay with me, that one.
That's beautiful. That's really nice, where they can actually share their true emotions where you're not asking them that sort of thing. Okay, next question. What's the weirdest situation you've been placed in whilst fostering?
The weirdest?
Or one of the weirdest.
Yeah, one of the weirdest. There's lots of situations that are very non-standard. I think weirdest. I think the thing that jumps into my mind is actually being at a kid's birthday party. So I've been to a few of those now, and it's weird in terms of how you manage it as a foster carer, because quite often you're not known to the families of the kids. Yeah, so a mum, dad, or a family have invited you there, or invited the kids there, and you then turn up, and there are some situations where they might have been expecting birth parents to show up, because not everyone in the class knows that the children are in foster care. It's something, to preserve that dignity of the child and the privacy, then it's not widely shared. So you turn up, and then who are you? Then there's an element of having to explain who you are subtly and off to the side to the parents involved, and then also, they would say, okay, you're fine, you can leave, come back in 2 hours. Well, actually, you know what, I can't leave because the child's in my care and I have to stay, and that kind of stuff. So it's a dynamic. It's one of those things that you just don't even think about really until you're in that situation. But then you understand your responsibilities, you understand you want to be sensitive to the kids, to the parents involved, so there's no embarrassment. So it's one of those think on your feet situations. But
a lot of fostering's like that.
Yeah, it is, but I don't know if that qualifies as weird, but it's certainly a bit non-standard, and just something that requires a bit of extra thought, sensitivity, and a tactful take in that situation, I think.
I was thinking of weird situations or difficult situations I've had, without going into too many details because we have to be careful what we say, but having to, or being called up by my birth children's teacher to explain some of the things my birth child has been saying, because our foster child has confessed, disclosed some very awful things to her, because she gained the trust of the foster child, and then my birth child is explaining that to the teacher, and then I have to explain to the teacher what's going on. That can be a little bit difficult, but I suppose the positive is that, foster children feel, or some of them feel, relaxed and comfortable enough and safe enough, which is what you want, to be able to disclose information. Ideally to us as foster carers, but often it can come through the foster children to birth children, can it? Because they're closer in age, they build trust. But yeah, you have to have a no secrets policy. But that can be a bit awkward.
And it's always knowing that this is likely to happen, and therefore preparing birth children that this could happen. And what do they do if that happens? Well, you come and tell us about it subtly, not shouting through the house, but you come and take us aside and talk about that. And again, it's about, in the school setup, having really good communication with a teacher, which is never a bad thing for any family.
Oh my gosh, did that not film?
I don't know. I think it did.